Elemental Witch starting build. Witch class has a familiar, tons of spells and hexes, as well as patron, additional deity, let's call it. Elemental Witch is a classic damage dealing spellcaster, it's simple as that. Choosing race, we need high intelligence, solid dexterity for this subclass. Human, elf, half-orc, tiefling, vampire, and kitsune apply for the role. We start off with human, and then we transfer to other races as well. Background selection. Regional, Kadiran, Wanderer is the way to go. Allocating ability points. 7, 18, 9, 20, 8, and 8. Allocating skill points. Knowledge Arcana, Knowledge World, Lore Nature, Perception, Persuasion, and use Magic Device. Since this is a damage dealing spellcaster witch, we will go with Spell Focus Evocation into Greater Spell Focus Evocation. Good feats to acquire are Spell Penetration, Abjuration, Conjuration, and Necromancy. Allied Spellcaster Elemental Focus into specific element you want to deal damage with: fire, acid, cold, or electricity. Witch's Familiar. We pick a pet now. Everything is valid: duck, dog, hare, chicken, centipede, raven, viper, pick what you like, I'll go with raven. Elemental Patron. Elements is great for 90% of builds. Winter is great if you decided to go with Elemental Focus into cold for your feats. In this case, we're gonna pick elements. Elemental Ray. Acid and electricity is all around valid from level 1 to 20. Fire is mid-game oriented. Cold is late game oriented. We're gonna go with fire. Choosing spells now. We're searching for evocation and some utility spells. So, Burning Hands for some AoE damage, Cure Light Wounds for some healing, Ear Piercing Scream for some long range damage, Enlarge for some buffs, Mage Armor for some defense, Remove Sickness for some utility, Summon Monster 1 for some early support, Unbreakable Heart for some more utility. Deity and alignment, they're completely your choice, pick what you like the most. You can go with everything here for the witch. Other races now as Elemental Witch. For elf, half-elf, and half-orc, we're gonna stick with base versions and we're gonna copy the entire human build. For tieflings, Grimspawn and base tiefling are only valid options here, and then we're gonna copy it all from human build. Vampire, Vetala born Ajibachana is a great choice, but you might consider taking Necromancy instead of Evocation and switch most of your spells to Necro spells. You are a vampire after all. Once you do that, we copy everything else from human build. Kitsune, only Kin Kitsune is valid here, and we're gonna copy the entire human build. Hagbound Witch starting build. Witch class has a familiar, tons of spells and hexes, as well as patron, additional deity, let's call it. Hagbound is a melee transforming monster witch, simple as that, it's a hag. Choosing race, we need high intelligence and solid strength here. Human, half-elf, half-orc, and vampires will apply for this role. For the background selection, we're gonna pick regional, Kadiran, Wanderer. Allocating ability points: 16, 14, 14, 18, 9, and 7. Allocating skill points, we take Knowledge Arcana, Lore Nature, Perception, Persuasion, and use Magic Device. Feats, we're gonna go with Spell Focus Enchantment for the first feat, and Spell Focus Conjuration for the second feat. Good feats to acquire are Spell Penetration, Evocation, Transmutation, Necromancy, Allied Spellcaster, Elemental Focus into specific element you want to deal damage with: fire, acid, cold, or electricity. And of course, a lot of melee feats for a hag, like Precise Strikes, Toughness, Endurance, and so on. Remember, this is not a classic spellcasting witch, this is a melee spellcasting witch. Witch's Familiar. All of the pets are valid here. Duck, dog, hare, chicken, centipede, raven, viper, tarantula, and so on. What I like the most for this subclass is a lizard, because of the armor class bonus, because we're gonna be melee, alright? So we pick a lizard. Hagbound Patron, good to take, are Strength and Transformation. They're both extremely good here. For this showcase we will go with Strength, which doesn't mean that it's better than Transformation, they're both amazing here. Pick what you like more. Choosing spells, we're gonna take Enchantment and Conjuration, so Command, Cure Light Wounds, Hypnotism, Mage Armor, Remove Sickness, Snowball, and Summon Monster 1. You can also exchange Hypnotism for Sleep and go like that, your choice. Deity and Alignment, they're completely your choice, pick whatever you like, it really doesn't matter that much. Other races now as Hagbound Witch. For half-elves and half-orcs we're gonna stick with base versions and we're gonna copy the entire human build. For Dhampir, Jiangshi-born Arushi, and Vampire King, Sacred Ancestry, Vampire King-born, they're only valid options here. But you might consider taking Necromancy in feats and switch most of your spells to Necro spells, you are a vampire after all. Hex Channeler Witch, starting build. Witch class has a familiar, tons of spells and hexes as well as patron, additional deity let's call it. This subclass can be played in two different ways, as a healer or as a necromancer, it's your choice. We are going to create a necromancer witch because I believe there are far better classes and subclasses for a healer, starting for example from a cleric all the way to the oracle. There are really classes that do it better. We are going for a necro. Choosing race for our necro witch, we need high intelligence, solid dexterity for this subclass. Human, elf, half-orc, tiefling, dhampir and kitsune are all valid options here. Background selection, there is only one way with a necro and it's Gibeon Necromancer in regional branch. Allocating ability points, we're going with 9, 18, 8, 20, 7 and 8, full risk reward build. Allocating skill points, we're gonna take Knowledge Arcana, Knowledge World, Lore Nature, Lore Religion, Persuasion and use Magic Device. Since we are creating a Necro Witch, we're gonna go with Spell Focus Necromancy into Greater Spell Focus Necromancy. Good feats to acquire are Spell Penetration, maybe a little bit of Abjuration, Conjuration for summons, and Evocation for spells to hurt. Allied Spellcaster, Elemental Focus into specific element you wanna deal damage with, Fire, Acid, Cold, or Electricity. Let's stick with Necro for now. Witch's Familiar, there are two valid choices here for a Necro, it's Raven and Viper. Pick what you like. Choosing Patron, I only see Shadow as a valid option here, as the best option here. If we went with a classic healer, everything here would be a good choice, but for a Necro, only Shadow. I repeat again, this class can be played in two different ways, healer or a Necro. We chose Necro, so Shadow. Choosing Hexes. Vulnerability, Curse, Misfortune, Evil Eye and Fortune are hexes that I like the most, that I think they're really good. We will pick Evil Eye for our Necro Witch. Choosing spells. First, we're gonna pick all Necromancy spells. Cause Fear, Inflict Light Wounds, Ray of Enfeeblement, and Ray of Sickening. After that, we're gonna add Burning Hands, Mage Armor, Remove Sickness, and Summon Monster 1. Deity and Alignment, they're completely your choice, pick what you like the most. You should pick something evil though for the specific build. Good deity if you want to go with a healer for example, but I say it again, at least 3 classes in these games are better than a witch. Deity and Alignment, they're completely your choice, you should pick something evil for a necro, okay? But really doesn't matter, you can be a good necromancer too, alright? So pick whatever you like and same applies to alignment. Other races now as Hex Channeler Witch. For elf, half elf and half orc, we're gonna stick with base versions and we're gonna copy the entire human build. For tiefling, Grimspawn works the best here and base tiefling. They're only valid options. And then we're gonna copy the entire human build. For Dhampir, Vetala-born is the way to go, and then we're gonna copy the entire human build. Kitsune, only Kin Kitsune is a valid option here, and then we're gonna copy the entire human build. Leyline Guardian Witch, starting build. Which class has a familiar, tons of spells and hexes, as well as a patron, additional deity, let's call it. This is a sorcerer witch, or better to say, this subclass will receive a lot of sorcerer spells combined with witch spells. Being a mix of a sorc and a witch, intelligence is replaced for charisma as the main stat. Leyline will empower your spells in many different ways as you level up. Choosing race, we need high intelligence, solid dexterity for this subclass. So, human, half-elf, half-orc, gnome, halfling, Aasimars, Dhampirs, tieflings, and kitsunes all apply for this role. For the background selection, we will pick regional Cadrian Wanderer. Allocating ability points 7, 14, 9, 20, 8, and 16. Allocating skill points, straight brain dead, we just pick all greens, Arcana, World, Nature, Perception, Persuasion, and use Magic Device. Feats. You can play as utility Leyline Guardian, then as a healer, as a summoner, as a necromancer, as a buffer, or as a pure damage dealing spellcaster. This varies a lot now from your feats, it all depends on your spell focus. For this showcase, we will pick Enchantment, and for the second feat, we're gonna pick Spell Focus Conjuration. Good feats to acquire are Spell Penetration, Abjuration, Necromancy, Evocation, Allied Spellcaster, Elemental Focus into specific element you want to deal damage with, fire, acid, cold, or electricity. Patron. It depends on what type of Leyline Guardian we want to play with. Let me explain in short. If you want to play as a spellcaster damage dealing evocation Leyline Guardian Witch or a base regular witch, then Winter and Devotion are good choices for a patron. If you want to play as a healer witch, then Healing Patron is the patron you're looking for. If you want to play with transmutation spells, then Transformation and Strength is what you're looking for. Agility is also a valid option here. And so on. That's how this works. For our case, as utility, enchantment, and conjurer, valid options are Strength, Mercy, Endurance, Devotion, and Ancestors. For this case, we will pick Ancestors, since it gives a lot of good AoE buffs for the entire team. We can only pick 2 spells for this subclass, so we're gonna take Summon Monster 1 for some early support and Snowball for some early damage. Deity and alignment, they're completely your choice, pick what you like the most, and off we go. Other races now, as Leyline Guardian Witch. For half-elf and half-orc, we're gonna stick with base, and we're gonna copy the entire human build. Gnomes and halflings, we can also stick with base, and we can apply the entire human build. For Gnome Pyromaniac, he can be played as a fire-based witch. We need evocation and elemental focus fire to make it work. Of course, your patron will also need to be changed for some fire patron. Aasimars, Emberkin is just straight great for this build. We're gonna apply all from human build after it, but you would need to change from enchantment and conjuring into evocation and fire for the Emberkin. If you wanna stick with conjuring, then Idilkin is the way to go because you receive a lot of summons. Tiefling, Beastbrood, and Spitespawn are valid options here. After that, we copy everything from human build. For Dhampir, Vetalaborn is the only valid choice, and after that we copy the entire human build. For Kitsune, both base Kitsune and Kin Kitsune are equally good here. After that we copy the entire human build. Stigmatized Witch, starting build. Which class has a familiar, better to say a pet, tons of spells and hexes, as well as patron, additional god, additional deity, let's call it. Stigmatized Witch is a cursed witch that scales with charisma, heavily with charisma. Curse comes from Oracle class, so it's a mini Oracle Witch. Extremely hard to play this subclass because of penalties. Choosing race, we need high intelligence, good charisma, and solid dexterity for this subclass. Human, gnome, half-elf, half-orc, halfling, tiefling, Dhampir, and Kitsune apply for the role. Background selection. Kadiran, Regional Kadiran Wanderer is the way to go. Allocating ability points. 8, 16, 9, 12, 9, and 20 is the way to go here. Allocating skill points. We will take Knowledge Arcana, Lore Nature, Perception, Persuasion, and use Magic Device. Feats. We want to take Spell Focus Conjuration into Greater Spell Focus Conjuration. Good feats to acquire are Spell Penetration, Abjuration, Evocation, Necromancy, Illusion, Allied Spellcaster, Elemental Focus into specific element you want to deal damage with. Fire, Acid, Cold, or Electricity. Picking a pet now, which is familiar. Good to take are duck, dog, hare, chicken, raven, viper, centipede. Pick what you like. It really doesn't matter that much. Choosing Hex. I believe that Fortune is straight bloody broken. Go for it. Oracle's Curse. Here we are. Penalties now. Blackened won't affect us at all, and it will give us some free spells to cast. All other curses have hilarious penalties. Avoid them like plague. We take Blackened. For our spells here, we're gonna pick Summon Monster 1 for some early support and Snowball for some early damage. Deity and Alignment, they're completely your choice, pick what you like the most. Other races now for Stigmatized Witch. For half-elf and half-orc, we stick with base versions and we apply the entire human build. For gnomes and halflings, we go with base versions and we apply the entire human build. Have in mind that you can play Pyromaniac here if you switch Conjuration for Evocation. You're gonna add Elemental Focus Fire to hurt with fire because you're a Pyromaniac. And you're gonna switch towards some Fire Hexes here and off you go. Aasimars. Muse Touched is the only valid option here for this subclass. After that we pick everything from human, copy everything from human. Tiefling, Beast Brood, and Spite Spawn are the way to go, and then we copy the entire human build. Dhampir, base classic Dhampir is the only valid choice here, and we're gonna copy it all from human after that. Kitsune, base Kitsune is the only real option here. After that we copy the entire human build. Witch of the Whale starting build. Which class has a familiar, better to say a pet, tons of spells and hexes, as well as patron, another god, additional deity, let's call it. This subclass is forced to play with Deception Patron. Nothing special about it. You just can pick patron, you're delivered with one. Let's make a build around Deception Patron. Choosing race, we need high intelligence, solid dexterity for this subclass. Human, elf, half-orc, tiefling, Dhampir, Kitsunes all apply for the role. Background selection, Regional Kadiran Wanderer is the way to go. Allocating ability points, 7, 18, 9, 20, 8, and 8. For skill points, we take everything that's green. We got exactly enough points. Arcana, World, Nature, Perception, Persuasion, and use Magic Device. Feats. There is nothing to think about it here. Only Spell Focus Illusion and Spell Focus Enchantment are valid. For the first one we pick Illusion, for the next one we pick Enchantment. Later on you'll upgrade these two into greater versions of them. Familiar. Good to take are duck, dog, hare, chicken, raven, viper, centipede. Your choice what you wanna go with. We're gonna go with raven. Choosing a hex, we're gonna go with fortune, cause I believe it's extremely OP. Protective luck is very good. Vulnerability curse is great. Ward is great. Aura of purity is great. But we're gonna go with fortune. Choosing spells now. We take Burning Hands, Command, Hypnotism, Mage Armor, Remove Sickness, Sleep, Snowball, and Summon Monster 1. For deity, it really doesn't matter, it's your choice, pick what you like the most. Same applies with alignment. Other races now for Witch of the Whale. For Elf, Half-Elf, and Half-Orc, we stick with base versions and we apply the entire human build. For Tieflings, Grimspawn, and base Tiefling are only valid options. After that we apply everything from human build. Dhampir, Vetalaborn is a great choice, but you might consider taking Necromancy for your feats and switch those two spell focus feats. Of course, you're also gonna exchange spells for the Necro spells. Kitsune, only Kin Kitsune is valid. After that we copy the entire human build.